Mayor Williams, I think he's just stepped out.
Just stepped out.
Oh, there he is. Council President Lake here. Mr. Swartz? Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Vonderhaar?
Here.
Ms. Bowen or Ms. Longenecker?
It's going to be Ms. Longnecker.
Okay. And Ms. Snyder?
She's on her way. Yes, I'm here. Mayor's here. So we do have a quorum. Sent to you via email were the minutes from the previous meeting of June 25th. I have a couple corrections to them on page 3. On the top paragraph where it says that there's a provision in law that allows governmental agencies to petition the county, delete county and insert state. And then in the next line, delete Hamilton County and insert State Tax Commission. And the third change I'd like to have recorded for the minutes is in the next paragraph down, in the middle of that, where it speaks to the financial recovery plan assumes staffing levels with decreasing staff through attrition. Delete attrition and insert retirements. Those are all the changes I have. Does anyone else have any corrections?
I'm missing the third one. Where that's in the first paragraph under Police and Fire Division staffing.
Keep going. You're almost there. Delete attrition to 40. Keep going. There we go.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
My apologies.
No worries. All right. If there are no other changes, do I have a motion to accept the minutes as corrected?
Move.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are approved.
I will make those changes and send them back out to you for your records.
Oh, thank you, Donna. All right, we are on our agenda now to the report of the financial supervisors. And prior to the meeting, they sent us out our information, and I think there's some additional information in front of you as well. So I'll give it to April Davis and Anna Mary Thomas.
In front of you are the financial reports. When they were sent out, attachment D was not with it. You now have attachment D, which is the reconciliation for the month of July. That was given to us after the documents went out, but we do have that. That's a normal one we have.
D as in dog?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so we'll start with attachment A, which is the statement of cash position. On page 1 of 2, the general fund at this time, at the end of July, is at $2.9 million before outstanding encumbrances. And then on page 2 of 2, we normally talk about the water fund because it has been showing negative. It is now at $2.14 million, and I'm going to hold off on talking about why, because as you see, we have a water fund analysis that we'll talk about after the financial reports that April will go over. So if you'll hold your questions on that so she can explain it more, I would appreciate that. There were no other funds. None of them were in the negative under the unexpended balance. There is one after encumbrances, and that's a timing with encumbrances in place and not having the full revenue received for the year. So is there any questions about the statement of cash position at the end of July? Okay. So we'll go to attachment B, which is the recovery plan revenues versus actual. And there's only one page. General fund we'll look at first. This is also through the end of July. So we're looking at a target of 58.33%, which is just 7 over 12 months. As you can see, overall for the general fund, we're at 62.8% received versus what we estimate. Municipal tax is at 63.5%. Our biggest month of collection is April, but we are on target to hit what we are projecting at this time, as I've talked with the city treasurer's office as well. Hotel tax is more than expected at this time. We have at least one more quarter, if not two, of collections there. That's a smaller pie, but we're at 98% collected. Charges for services, we expect that to be high right now. A lot of the recreation fees are in there, and they have their biggest activities during the summer months. We're on detachment B. So you'll expect to see a higher percentage collected right now, and then it should start after the summer months coming back into line of the month percentages. Fines and forfeitures, this was up last time, it's still up. The traffic fines that have been collected so far by the city are up. There's more traffic detail officers out. When I did talk to the police chief, that can account for more revenues coming in. Our investment income is higher than projected. Again, they just started doing Star Ohio last year, so we're going to see the first full year of Star Ohio, which is actually in all three funds that are on this page. But it is tracking higher than expected. And then the other miscellaneous revenue that's on here, we talked about it a little bit last time as too. We got property tax refunds back from the county when there were payments made on some of the old delinquent properties that they're looking to sell here. There were premium refunds and insurance refunds, and then the Benovation money that came in that Donna talked about at the last commission meeting was placed here as well to then be sent out to the correct people that Benovation had held the money for, or the checks were just never cashed when they were doing the service for the city. Is there any question about the general fund? The other two, go ahead, sorry.
A way to interpret this is that we're bringing in more than we had planned. We're ahead of plan favorably.
Favorably, yes. Any other questions on the general fund? Okay. Street and State Highway are the next two funds. They are slightly below projections at this point. We're watching those. The change in the gas tax and MVO, we may see a rise on this here soon with the change in the state budget. So we're watching this, but I'm not concerned about it at this time. Any other questions over the revenues? Okay. The next one is C, and this is the expenditures through July versus what the recovery plan states. Again, our target is 58.33%. We want to see it at that level or below. I really want to see it below for the most part. I'm not going to go over slightly exceeds ones because they're so close and they're being watched. I do want to go over the ones that say exceeds. So if you go to page 2 of 7, we have this service director's office. We had a one-time payment paid up in the first of the year. There was also a one-time payment out for personnel costs. Once we get through things, that percentage will come back in line, but the one-time payments do throw percentages off. Page 3 of 7, we have the Police Administrative Department. We had the clothing allowance, and then we also have health insurance that's slightly higher than projections that we're checking the allocation for. That I'm discussing with the city auditor's office. Fire department, which is at the bottom of that page, clothing allowance has been paid out. It's a one-time deal. They also get that. There was also holiday and vacation buybacks paid out. It's a one-time, so it also bumps up the percentage paid out. They also had the radio expense lease that was paid in February that was paid out, which is also causing that percentage to be higher based on the 7 divided by 12 months compared to what they've had to pay.
Did you say the radio expense lease, and what was the other one, the buybacks?
Holiday and vacation buybacks, that's part of the contracts.
So we still anticipate being in line by the end of the year?
As of right now, yes. we're watching all departments closely on their budgets though. Not just me, but the city itself, so. Okay, any others on that? Page 4 of 7, we have the EMS department at the top of the page. They paid their ambulance debt in February, one-time payment, so that also bumps up the percentage base, which we talked also about last time. Page 5 of 7, the Health and Medical Services Department, since the time that I put this together and in talks with the City Auditor's Office, there was a severance payment paid out of this department incorrectly. It has already been corrected in August, and so this will be showing much more in line of where it should be. It was just an error and it's been fixed. So, page 6 of 7. Retiree benefit program. Most of that payment has been made out for the year. Donna talked about that also last time. There may be more coming. I'll let her address that if she wants to during her report. But that should stay within the parameters that it was estimated at, as it was estimated at the highest potential that they would have to have paid out. Retirees health care. We expected bigger payments in the front part. This is the last year of this. So they have to put in claims and stuff, and that has to be done by the end of the year. So as that comes throughout the year, the expenses should lessen as we go. They also paid out the Benovation money that they received that we talked about in the miscellaneous revenue. Most of that's been paid out to those that were owed, and this is the line that those payments were made from. And then the debt service, again, they've made their one big payment of principal and interest, and they have one interest payment left. So it's still on track, even though it's at a high percentage. Any questions about the general fund before I go to the last page?
The total then, our target is 58.33. The general fund expenses are at 51.35.
Correct. Any others? Okay. The last page has the street and state highway. They haven't really seen expenses there. I know that they have been in some works on trying to get projects started here soon, and those who live here have seen that through their council meeting minutes. So right now they're below target, but we'll see expenditures coming through there in the last half of the year.
So where does the water fall in this?
Water, okay, we're going to get to the water fund when she gets, but when we do a fiscal emergency, when they were put in, we monitor only the funds that put them into emergency, and those that would be affected, like the general fund at the time.
Yeah.
There were other funds that have now been moved to the general fund because they were all only just transfers from the general fund. So therefore we monitor it as well. The water fund was not a negative fund when we put them in.
Obviously things have changed. So will they be on our list to monitor going forward?
Unless they turn negative, which we've been monitoring. Will, right? I mean, we've been monitoring them, and I've stated every month. Yeah.
Okay.
That the fund has been negative. It has now been positive, and then I'm going to let her talk about that.
I'll wait till you.
Okay. Attachment D is the bank reconciliation that is performed by the city treasurer's office. You can see all the banks listed and then the adjusting factors to get back to book balance. The reconciling items still being researched is lower a little bit, but it's still around the $5,000 mark at this time. Any questions on any of those reports?
Do we have any kind of sense when that research is going to be completed?
It is not a small process. Some of it is from prior years, and then looking at some of the items that have come forward in current months. We have been looking at it as well. Once we get a feel that we can't find any more, maybe then we will bring forth a potential resolution for council to approve. But we are not at that point in time right now. If there's nothing else for me, then I'm going to turn it to April.
Okay, so at our last commission meeting, we talked about the analysis of the water and sewer funds that my staff did. And at that point, we determined that what was being collected from the city was being receipted into the correct funds. Following our last commission meeting, I did have a meeting with the Safety Service Director and Ms. Lakes to talk about some issues and concerns and where we were at as far as the analysis. Within the context of that meeting, it was discussed that MSD did pay or used to pay the city an amount for providing the billing. And so I went and asked some questions in a different format and got a little different response. And what you have in front of you, you should have a sheet that says Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. So when we look at the invoice that's coming from Cincinnati Waterworks, which is the billing for MSD, on this particular one, you'll see the amount due over to the right. See the $509,000? This is what the city auditor's office sees, and this is what the city auditor's office pays off of. I was looking, along with my staff, for on this invoice to show basically here's the gross amount minus an amount that the city may retain to get to a net payable amount. It never shows up on this document. But if you flip the page, there is an internal document created. And if you'll look in the middle of the page, you'll see the less 7%. This is the percentage that the city is allowed to withhold and retain. So the total amount that the city is going to bill out is going to be the $547. That's what's going to get billed to the residents. But MSD is only going to bill the city for the $509. So that is where the mismatch comes into play with the dollars that are going into the sewer fund. That's why we've seen that huge balance in the sewer fund. It's because this 7% has accumulated over years. So I was able to contact MSD, and I requested as far back as they had documentation to provide me of what that dollar amount was each year. They were able to provide to me back through 2014. So 14 through, I believe it was May of 19, the total of that 7% being withheld is $2,359,043.
So where's that money gone?
It's gone into the sewer fund.
Okay.
So what should have happened is there should have been a month-end transaction to basically bill the sewer fund and receipt that into the water fund, because the employees that are providing the service and then the cost of the billing software, that's all paid out of the water fund. That's why the water fund has gone negative. So conversations after we got this all figured out, conversations between the city auditor, and then the city auditor talked to the independent public accounting firm that completes the audit for the city. And they preferred and instructed the city auditor to just do basically like a fund balance adjustment. That requires no action from council. So the whole transfer thing that council was going to do, like a resolution, that's gone. That's off the table. When you're doing a fund balance adjustment that's, you know, authorized by the firm doing your audit, that doesn't have to come to council necessarily. So the city auditor has made that adjustment, and that is why now you see the water fund is positive.
Okay.
So I think that it, you know,
So where was it sitting before?
in the sewer fund.
So that was 61.
Yes, it's been
61. So that's why that fund had a big balance. Now, if you look on the sheet,
Attachment A.
So I see 3 million of disbursements. So 3 million?
yeah,
That's
so,
what that is?
wait. No, it's in the revenue. So if
Yeah.
you look at the,
Oh,
revenue, so I will tell you that with the software package that the city currently has, there is no way to post basically a fund balance adjustment to basically show like you're impacting beginning fund balance. They have to run it through a revenue or an expense. I don't like that, but I can't change the software. So that's how it got posted. was as a revenue to the water fund, a reduction of revenue to the sewer fund. So we're gonna see if there's a different way that that can be recorded in the system. I don't know that it can with the current software that they have. But that's why you see that big negative revenue in month to date for the sewer fund.
Wait, so are you on B?
No,
this is A.
on
Oh,
A,
yeah, I'm on A. But
The
I thought you were,
Second page,
Cash flow.
the cash position, this report.
month-
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
The 3.1 million disbursement.
right. The disbursement is
okay.
not in there. Or this adjustment, this 2.3 is not in the disbursement, it's in the revenue. See the month to date receipts column and see how that's a negative?
Okay, all right.
That's where it's at, in the
Okay.
sewer fund.
we actually track the detail. I get the detail report, so I've seen the actual
Where is it,
movement of money between the two. and
So
the
you
revenue.
just said that the accumulated fees were 2.9 million, I think she said, between 14 and 19, but I only see a
2.3.
disbursement of 1.8, 2.3.
Yeah, but it's a net effect in there because it would have the revenues that were collected for the sewer for the month, and which I've seen the detailed part of it, and then you see the adjustment to move from the sewer fund to the water fund. So that's a net effect. You would have to see the detail to know and the exact amounts and the date. It was done at the end of July.
Okay.
So I just have a question. What would have been the right way to do it as far as the counting procedures?
The right, you mean as far as?
Initially, yeah.
Oh, and initially, okay, I said the water fund should have billed, there should have been a transaction that showed basically the water fund billing the sewer fund for that 7%, so that you would expense it out of the sewer fund and receipt it into the water fund, so that you could clearly see what was going
All the
on, see an audit
transactions.
trail,
Okay.
yes.
So maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but same schedule, looking at the encumbrances for water, it's only 400,000. We're going to talk about the issues that are going on in the city and how we're going to pay for them.
Sure. So, okay, I'm not going to get into, my wheelhouse is only financial. It's not engineering and all that stuff. So, as far as what steps this commission would have to take and what you guys would expect to see is once all of the studies are done and it's determined what the city needs to do, can and cannot do with those tanks, if they're required to fix the tanks or construct new tanks,
Hasn't that already been determined by the EPA? They need to be fixed at a minimum?
at a minimum, I think, but I don't have the reports on both tanks yet.
Okay.
So, let's say that they have to build a new tank. Okay, new tanks, no municipality has that kind of money laying around, so they would have to incur debt. At that point, that's when this commission would see that. We would have to, bring the debt to the commission would have to approve it. Before it would even get to the commission, Anna Mary and I would be working on a forecast of the water fund to determine, okay, if they borrow X amount of dollars, how are they going to be able to make these payments?
Right.
I have also been in conversation with a gentleman from the EPA that is with the finance department and had this exact same conversation. That the commission would really only have to approve the debt. But Anna Mary and I would put together the forecast, work with the city to make sure that, if they incur this debt, they're going to be able to make those payments.
Okay. So what's the expected timing on that?
I can't answer that.
We're not getting a whole lot of detail. Right now, the plan has been to prepare to shut down the one tank. So all the work that you're seeing now is being in preparation for that. In the past, they really made an honest attempt to shut down those tanks, and they did. It blew out water lines all over. So what we did, we met with Cincinnati on numerous occasions and put this plan together to prepare to shut down those tanks. So one tank was shut down, new valves were installed in the pits, backflow preventer, all kinds of new valves in preparation for that. The one tank has been shut down. It is being prepared to be brought back up online in the next few days. And I can't give you an exact date because that can change. So what we're doing now is to make sure in daily checks with the EPA under the guidance of the EPA and Greater Cincinnati Water Works to prepare to bring that tank back online. Once that happens, then the second tank will be cleared and evaluated and brought back up online. And the way I understand it now is, I believe that they have to be inspected every so many years. And if the EPA permits it, then those tanks can be brought up online and serve for a certain amount of time. But it's all in flux, because those tanks, everything has to be evaluated. There's all kinds of plans that have to be made. It's not as simple as just shutting it down, filling it back up, and going. We have to meet the EPA guidelines, which we have done. Tests are being done every 24 hours, 7 days a week. So it's a process. And how it's going to turn out, I'm really not sure. I think the idea for me and Joe is to get those tanks stable, meet the EPA standards, and then plan from there. So that's where it stands.
Is the city of Cincinnati, are they charging us to help us?
There is a contract in place. It's been amended twice.
What are the terms?
Pardon?
What are the terms?
Well, it goes up to 150,000
Okay.
is maximum. And basically, it's covering the cost of their employees when they're providing assistance to the city and any material. So it's
Okay.
basically labor and material.
150,000 covers what period of time?
150,000. I don't know the exact date of that. It was I think it was 90 days. I don't know without pulling the document. Because it's been amended twice.
Okay. What about, is the city given thought, again, is there potential legal exposure? Seems the city knew for quite a long time that something had to be done, but wasn't. I would think it needs to be considered. I don't know, is there any lawsuits been filed to date?
Anything's possible. I mean,
What?
people can line up and sue you anytime.
That's my question.
And I understand that. What I'm saying is, I don't know whether there will be. I can tell you this, that we have not had one document, not one, that said that there was any risk. I don't have one document that says we didn't fail to test. I don't have one document that said that we didn't meet all the EPA standards. So I have no document, there's no printed document, there's no proof, there's no test that says that we failed any test or failed to provide safe water. Not one test.
Okay. I haven't seen everything.
And
so I'm just asking the question.
that's based on the EPA.
Okay.
And I provided council the other night copies of tests going back, I don't know, 8-10 years. I've also provided council with copies of EDS tests, because Donna can correct me, I mean, they do 15 different locations once a month throughout the city.
For bacteria.
Bacterial possession. And then those tests are sent to the Cincinnati Health Department. Those tests are confirmed. They come back to the city. The city then sends them to the EPA.
Okay.
So every time those tests are conducted, the EPA gets a copy of it, and the EPA monitors those tests, and they have for years.
Okay. So those tests are done monthly, and they've been done monthly for...
I used to do them when I was the health commissioner,
Okay.
so I can speak to it firsthand.
Okay.
There is also chlorine testing that is required to be done 365 days a year. I used to
Yeah.
take the test kit home on weekends and holidays and test my water. The EPA requires, based on your population and the size of your city, the number of tests that you do every month for bacteria. You have to submit a map to the EPA to show that you are covering the entire city. It has to be a combination of homes, businesses, of different types of places. And then the health department collects those samples in accordance with the EPA guidelines. I'm assuming we still send them to Cincinnati Waterworks for testing. They send back the papers, and at the end of each month, Jean Tolbert at the health department would compile all of those and fill out a report on a form as prescribed by the Ohio EPA. Mr. Gears, we'd send it over, then Mr. Gears, as the water purveyor, would sign that report and send it in to the EPA monthly. The water report that you get every year is also required
But that's,
to inform the residents about how the testing is going. I personally developed the template for that when that requirement was added. And so the figures that you see in that report that's mailed to all of the residents, or not all the residents, the people who pay the water bill. So if you rent, you may not get it. The owner of the property would get it. That is a compilation of all of the tests that have happened in the previous year, all of those monthly reports.
so that's the water we're testing out of our tanks, not the water we're buying from Cincinnati.
They're one and the same, so we buy all of our water from Cincinnati.
Yeah, but the water from Cincinnati doesn't sit in those tanks. I mean, it sits in the tanks, right? So we testing the water that comes out of the tanks, or testing the water we're buying from Cincinnati?
We
before it
test
hits
the
tank?
water that comes into homes and businesses.
Okay.
I have never done tests on the water tower. I don't think the health department does. We were never required to do that. But the figures that are in that yearly report are is a compilation of all 12 reports that have gotten sent to the EPA in the prior year. The only thing that Norwood changes in those that we do are the chlorine testing that we do every day, the bacteria testing, the lead and the copper testing. Those are the things that Norwood is responsible for doing. All those other figures, when you talk about fluorine and bromine and all that other stuff, is a requirement from Cincinnati Waterworks because they are the producer of water.
Okay.
So, and those figures come directly from Cincinnati
Okay,
Waterworks.
so the report I get in the mail shows the testing of the water that they're doing when we buy
Correct.
it, and the testing that we do that comes out of the tap.
That is correct. But if you see something that's not reported for Norwood, it's because we're not required to do it. We don't produce the water. If you produce water, then you have to do a whole lot more testing. So Cincinnati Waterworks provides the city those numbers to put into that report.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And before I left, we trained other people to do it, so I know the person who does it, and he may be more anal than I am, so I'm sure he does it the correct way.
So the mayor's saying that you all did not receive, the city of Norwood didn't receive any, reports stating that, you were, not meeting the standards or whatever. So what is the EPA saying? I mean, because how did this all come around that, you came to the realization that, there were issues? So are they saying they provided reports and you just didn't get them, or what are they saying?
No, what they're saying was that they've said on numerous occasions that drinking water is safe to drink.
Every 3 years, the EPA comes down and does an audit of the system. They would come to the health department and they would make me show them all of my testing and all of the stuff that we did. They would watch how you did it. And then part of that system is also to inspect the towers, which I really wasn't involved in, but that's part of it. They would also talk to the public works people who work on the water system. And so every 3 years they do an audit. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mayor, I'm sorry. So I'm assuming it was during the audit that problems were found.
And to bring up to date, we have daily conversations, 7 days a week with the EPA. We have daily conversations with Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. Mr. Gears and I had a long conversation with the director of the state EPA, and we had a nice, productive conversation. And then she wants to come down. We'll meet with her in the next week or two at her convenience.
So right now, the liability appears to be on the infrastructure, not on unsafe drinking water ramifications.
That's exactly right, and that's, in my opinion, it's just the tip of the iceberg. As far as infrastructure in the city goes, it's 100 years old, storm sewer, water lines, buildings, you name it. And this is just part of it. And this is a critical part of it. Don't misunderstand me. This is an absolute critical part of it. And so this is being addressed now, and there'll be other issues come down the road that'll have to be addressed. How it's going to turn out with those tanks, keeping them over front, I have no idea. That will be up to the EPA. And so I guess the best case scenario is meet the EPA standards and see if it buys time on putting up another tank. The question has become, can we put a 3 million gallon tank up there? I don't know. The rule of thumb, as I've been told, is it's $2 a gallon. So if you're required to have 3 million in reserve, then you're looking at a $6 million cost. And so our main goal is to test it every day to make sure it's safe and to make sure that we don't blow a lot of lines out and to maintain pressure in the eventuality the fire department has a large fire, which we know can and does happen. So that's been the process all along. Safety of the system, making sure that we've got pressure, making sure we don't cause any damage in the city of Cincinnati or Norwood, and making sure the Norwood Fire Department has enough pressure in the eventuality of a fire. That's been the goal, and that's been the standards that we've been working with.
Did we cover what you needed to? Okay. Any other?
I guess we don't know yet, but we know something's around the cost, the expense, something's going to be incurred either to fix it. Obviously, we have the ongoing expenses that we're paying the city of Cincinnati, potential long-term replacing it. So maybe next meeting we can hear a little bit more about, to the extent we have, what those fees are going to be, because I think obviously it's not covered in our plan. And it could be
right, but
substantial.
it would all depend on timing. So if we
Right.
are not presented with good information
I understand.
at that time, I can't tell you that I can present anything
understand.
differently, or even April. It all depends on the timing of the studies and what they decide and how the EPA goes. So I can't promise you I'll have different information by the time we come to the next meeting, especially if we do it in the next month or so. So it would be a timing
Understood.
issue. So if anything would happen, we get information that we know will impact the water fund, that and we have to do a debt of any sort, which has to come to this commission, or if anything would impact the general fund or the street and state highway, which is what we monitor right now through the fiscal emergency, we would definitely bring that to the attention of the commission, and we would have to provide that with you. Until we get into the debt situation or more know what the cost could be to the water and we can forecast that, we would also need time for that. Like, even if we get information and we have not had time to analyze that to know what we can do in the future, I would not be able to sit here and properly inform you if I'm not properly informed.
The one thing I'd like to add, there's I only mentioned it once, this is like a partnership with Greater Cincinnati Water Works, the EPA, the City of Norwood, and Nixon Engineering, who that's what their specialty is, rehabbing and building these tanks. So those are the experts that we have involved looking at this situation. Cincinnati's got, section heads, department heads, engineers, chemists, everybody's on top of it. And so it's being monitored. I can't tell you how close it's being monitored, but it is being monitored daily.
Okay.
Any other questions on anything presented by the financial supervisors? Okay, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the financial recovery plan and the viability of that. Emailed to you prior to the meeting was the letter that the mayor sent in the latter part of July. I believe it was the 26th, to council, indicating the withdrawal of the two letters that we had considered at the previous meeting, at our commission meeting, that those no longer were on the table. In light of that, we asked ourselves what was the best path to take here, because we do have a resolution from the commission indicating the need for a revised financial plan. And so mailed to you prior to the meeting is resolution number 2, which our thought in suggesting this to the commission as one way to proceed and give a little breathing space to this while the State Employment Relations Board is going to be having a hearing the end of this month, that we suspend the resolution that we considered at the last meeting, and that until the time that we hear what the SERB board is going to be saying about the hiring of staff. Now, I think we're pretty clear that we're going to have a revised financial plan, and that's going to have to address the water to the degree we have information. And the plan we currently have was accepted the end of March, and we're now getting towards the end of August, and it isn't in alignment with necessarily with where we are. So this resolution 02, as I said, is to suspend the resolution from last meeting requiring a new amended financial plan, and then we can see where we are at our next commission meeting. I'm open to discussions about this.
So when we get better information on the water, and I think at that point we're all in agreement that we need to revise the plan, and that's when we would do another resolution, or how's that process work?
Well, there's more to the plan. Like Anna Mary said, the water is not an official part of the plan, but could be. But the staffing levels are certainly a part of the plan.
Sure.
And those are delineated in the existing plan. So if there is something that comes along that says those staffing levels can be retained, then that's what that will be for the plan. If there's something that comes along that says otherwise, then we would need to revise the plan. And we may be hearing something about that, or, I don't know. We can't know when the SERB board's going to rule. Are there any other comments or questions?
So the major thing we're waiting for is the ruling of the sewer board?
Yeah.
Okay.
The resolution we did at the last meeting, Marcy, was to say that we wanted an amended financial recovery plan within 45 days. And after that resolution, the mayor brought forth his letter withdrawing the revised staffing levels. So we contemplated doing away with the resolution, but our thought is keep this first resolution, because there may well indeed be a need to revise the plan. Any other discussion about this next step? I'm not going to read the whole resolution because you received it. The ending merely says that the Commission suspends resolution number 2019-01 until such time that there is a ruling from SERB, it's the State Employment Relations Board of Ohio, regarding the hiring of staff pursuant to the city's collective bargaining agreements.
So, Mayor, can we talk high level? How does that work? How's that process work with SERB? So, just so I understand, like, what comes out of that meeting? Is that binding, or how does that work? Probably not.
No, that's the question of the day. Let me begin briefly, because I can't get into particulars. I think we're might be moving in the right direction. I will say that. The unfair labor practices and the violations of the contract are all up to the State Employee Relations Board, and several stacks of paper have been filed in the form of motions. The question then becomes, if we go up to SERB, if that happens, if that becomes necessary, then the bargaining units and the city present their information for what they believe should happen. And then after that, then the CERB board votes. Now, whether they vote for the bargaining units or there's some for the city is hard to say. My guess in past history is it probably won't look favorable. And the intent has been, and I've made no secret about it, that the dilemma that we face. I had this discussion with an old friend this morning from the state auditor's office. The dilemma is this, is that the city is in a fiscal emergency. We're dictated by 118. The bargaining units, as they should, want to follow 4117, which is the bargaining, the labor negotiations. If the city violates the plan, the state, without any notice or without any debate, can come in and reduce our budget by 15%. No ifs, ands, or buts, they come in and they cut the budget by 15%. Even though it was out of our control. That an independent arbitrator or CERB made the decision, we didn't. So it's out of our control. So the dilemma is, where does it stop? Who happens in? Have cities in the past fudged on numbers? There's probably no doubt about that. But it's a documented fact that we are in a fiscal emergency. So the bargaining units have, the plan actually violates the contract. So where does it stop? Who controls what? Am I hopeful that something can be worked out to avoid that confrontation? Yes. But as I've been told, any type of agreement or settlement or proposal that we had the last time has to be costed out. So that task falls on April and Anna Mary. And so whatever the proposal is, they get it and they cost it out. And if it meets the plan, fine. If it doesn't, then it's by 118 standards, correct me if I'm wrong now, we can't do. So it has to be rejected.
Or we can revise our plan, right?
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we have to look, it's all right now, it's a numbers game. God forbid I should feel this way, but I'm just getting a little bit of optimism. I would like to avoid it. Do I think it can happen? I'm hopeful. But that's where it stands. It goes to CERB and then where it goes from there. And I'll be quite honest with you. Every time we think we're making progress, or every time progress is made, somebody in some form or fashion says something stupid. Fact. And it sets everything back. And then the rumor mill starts. I am optimistic. I am, for a lot of reasons, personal note, I'm at the end of my term. I'm at the end, and I'd like to see it settled. I don't want to pass another problem on. I'd like to see this thing agreed to and settled. So we'll keep you posted.
Yep.
Is there any other discussion regarding the resolution? I haven't made the motion. I'll make a motion, but I haven't yet. Go ahead, Mr. Sheep. Oh, you'll move it?
Move and accept it.
Okay, thank you. I'll second the motion. Any further discussion on this? We're going to have to continue visiting this. If it comes along that the city needs to pay out $10 million more, then a new plan will have to be put together.
Yep.
So this is our breathing space with this resolution.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
This board only meets, suppose, think a pleasant thought. Suppose something occurs that is agreed to. Do we have to wait, or Sherburne, do we have to wait till this board meets again?
To do what?
We'll say agreements are reached, and it passes muster. Do we have to wait for the board next meeting, or can we just go ahead and put the agreement into force if it passes the plan? Does this board have to approve it, in other words?
This board does not approve the contract.
They don't approve the contract.
I think the question is, I mean, if it increases the spend that's higher than the plan, do we have to approve it? I assume the answer is yes, but I don't know. Unless...
Well, they'd have to put together a whole new plan.
Yeah, right.
Because we can't just do it on the
Yeah.
edges. So a whole new plan would be put together by the mayor and given to council. Council would need to approve it, and it would come to us.
Yeah.
Well, let me make it clear. If it doesn't match the plan, the mayor's not going to okay it. It's very simple.
Say that again, I didn't hear what you said.
If it doesn't meet the plan, whatever the agreement, if it doesn't meet the plan, then I'm not going to accept it.
Well, the plan can be changed.
I'm not changing it. Let's put it clear.
It would need to be a viable plan,
Right.
Right.
is the big thing that
That's right.
the commission would, and what we would look at in that case. So yes, you can change the plan. I'm just making sure this is very clear. You can change the plan, but the viability of the plan has to remain. Whether there is a change in another expenditure code to offset what is being costed out for something else. It can't be just a flat increase without another change, which was what was being done in July. There was a draft out there by council that did change it some. It was never brought here because the letters have come out. You can't give one and not take from another, basically. Right. So it has to still be viable.
Yep.
So that would be where we would come into play.
And without that viability, that's when a community faces the state requirement in law that the expenditures are reduced. That becomes, so if there isn't a viable plan, if a community doesn't put forth a viable plan, then that's the consequence, which we talked about last.
Yeah, and I've been told that on numerous occasions. The thing about it is, that's why I will not authorize anything or enter into any agreement that violates the plan. Period.
For the 5 years that the plan is in place.
That's been made painfully clear.
All right, we have a motion on the table to accept Resolution 2019-02. It's been seconded. I think we should do a roll call vote, please. Yeah.
Mayor Williams?
Yes.
Mr. President Lake, yes. Mr. Shepherd?
Yep.
Mr. Longapar?
Yes.
Ms. Longnecker?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes. The resolution is passed. Okay, Mayor, we're on the part of the agenda where you can give a report. I don't know if you have additional information.
I think you've heard enough from me. I'll answer some questions if you like, but I think you've heard enough from me.
Council President Lake.
Council's been, we didn't meet the second meeting in July, but still have been active with activities going on in the city. When we referred to the retirees benefit program previously, the checks were sent out. As you recall, Benovation sent us a check saying that there were uncashed checks. Benovation sent us a check that said there were some uncashed checks from the retirees, which I don't think was true. I think they were probably in their system, but were never really issued. So we did research on those, we deposited the check and then gave refunds, sent checks out to those folks who are in the system so that the right folks got the money. And so that's why some of those numbers are a little off in the expense report. We also had the commission, the administrative committee for the Retirees Benefit Program that consists of 5 people. We had 3 appeals that we were required to hear. The commission met in June, July, I don't remember it's all a blur. We did meet. After consideration and some consultation with the law department, 2 of those 3 appeals were approved, and so they were added to the retiree benefit program. The 3rd one was not. It will still be within the expenditures that we expected to make in that system. So, as far as I know, the work of the administrative committee should be finished for this year. Should be pretty much smooth sailing from here on out. The end of this year, we'll send out applications or renewals to those folks who are in the system, and it should be a much easier process and much easier to budget and plan for in the future. We are having a special council meeting tonight for the public to come and ask questions about the water system. Although I think most of the folks who were asked to come, the Cincinnati Water Works and EPA, may not be in attendance. It was kind of a short notice, but we'll still hold the meeting and give out information that we can to the public.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're thinking about our next meeting date to be in about a month, and looking at a possibility of the date of September 26th. We had typically met at 11:30. We had this meeting today at 10. I guess my first choice would be the 11:30, but if we need to have a different time on the 26th, we can consider that as well.
I'll be out of town.
Okay. Will Lauren, though, be able?
Possible.
Okay. Is that
20,
September
yeah,
26th?
that's fine. Yeah.
Works for me.
It works. What time would you prefer?
Doesn't
Well,
matter. Yeah.
I'd prefer 10, but 11:30 works for me as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
10
10
works better?
10's fine, yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and do it at 10. 10 a.m. on September 26th. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. If I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Blake, I'll second the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.